My biggest takeaway podcast.
Welcome back to another episode. I have Brent here, Brent Kromer,
Mhm.
and essentially we've connected through being competitors to some degree. We're in the same space. We're helping coaches make more money. That's what we do. It seems like that's what we love to do. But there's one thing I think we both love, and that's sales.
Mhm.
I know you speak a lot on sales training, if I'm correct. And I've watched a lot of your content. I thought it's been great. And man, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. And we've jammed out quite a few times at this point. We can talk anything from sales to biz op, ads, everything. So it's a pleasure to hop on, man.
Absolutely, man. So what made you get into this space?
Yeah, I'll spare you guys the full Cinderella story here and just give you like the quick version. But I was doing organ recovery. I come from a healthcare background, so I was an ICU nurse. I did everything like neuro trauma ICU
Interesting.
transition. Yeah, I
Didn't
was
see
all
that
nursing.
coming.
Yeah. So everything brain, everything above the shoulders, I was pretty good with. I was decent with the spine, but anything else I wasn't so good with because we were so specialized. But I did that for close to 5 years. Did some COVID nursing, popped around the country. That's where I like found my love for traveling. Came back, started dating my current girlfriend Brooke, and I got like a stable job doing organ recovery, which always raises some eyebrows. So basically, um, if you're an organ donor, if it's on your license, basically I was like the person, or my team that I was with would come in and, if the person had passed away, we would procure the organs, put them on ice, ship them around the country for life-saving transplants. Did that for 2 years. While I was doing that, I told you I'd give you the quick story. I'm definitely not giving that. Sorry. Um, while I was doing that, Brooke, again, my girlfriend, she was starting a fitness business. It was going nowhere fast. She got her recurring revenue up to like $3,000, not take home. Let me preface, not take home. Okay. So she was not crushing it by any stretch of the imagination. She couldn't sell. Like she could not sell. She would get real panicky, real antsy and anxious, and she would like stutter on her words. I'd hear her in the other room, and I'm like, oh, Jesus. I was like, that didn't sound good. And then, she would sign somebody, then they'd back out a few days later, or she'd sign somebody and then somebody else would drop off because she couldn't re-sign. And it was just, I feel like a lot of coaches, and maybe you can share your perspective. I feel like a lot of coaches are stuck in that phase
Mm.
where they don't have the sales process down, or maybe it's a lead gen, but for whatever reason, it's like one step forward, two steps back, and they sit in this like purgatory for years. And it is a really sad thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. My girlfriend Paula would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
She, however, I feel is very good at sales.
Mm.
Because she was a bartender.
Right.
She worked at different restaurants and whatnot. So like she did a sales job selling like stereo equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna butcher that. She's gonna be like, no, I didn't. Sold stuff, electronics.
Yeah.
And so she was always in the face of like having the sale, having the sale, having the sale. And to her, people skills are developed when you're just immersed in drunk dudes.
Yeah, I guarantee.
Right. So, which allows you to create more authority,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is you're able to tell somebody like, hey, you've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, like you're constantly selling yourself, right? Because you're a tip-based industry. So waitresses, whatnot.
Yep.
You find that those that are interactive are the ones that are going to be the best at sales.
For sure.
And so for her, and then also working at First Form for 5.5 years, like, man, all she did was teach people over and over and over and over, essentially how to sell
Mm-hmm.
themselves, because that's what you're selling, right? You're buying the coach,
Sure.
not the coaching.
Right.
And so she said it last week. We were doing some filming, and I was like, what's the number one thing people struggle with? She's like, sales.
Yeah.
I was like, because sales is not only on the phone or on the Zoom, it's in the chat, it's in the conversation, it's in the content,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's everywhere.
You're selling them just to do their check-ins every week.
Absolutely. It's always a sell. And that's what I tell my team. I was like, hey, every single call you have is a sales call.
Yep.
I don't care if you're talking about an Instagram bio, it's a sales call.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're constantly have to provide value and we're constantly having to show certainty that we know what we're talking about.
100%.
Anytime that like you're uncertain in any part of the process, before, during, or after, causes that wait a second,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get buyer remorse, or we
Yep.
don't sign up, or this, that, whatever. A really great salesperson, okay, and I think a big stigma goes on, like, oh, you're a salesy person. There's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between salesy and being great at sales,
Oh, absolutely.
right? The great salesperson can constantly figure it out and sell the person that we're going to see results, even though currently we're still not right now, because we're still trying to figure out your body.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the person that comes in and they're just not optimistic. That's the
Mhm.
person that's the struggle, is like, you've got to get them to be 100% bought in and meet you in the same level of optimism and positivity for
Mm-hmm.
any result to happen.
Absolutely.
So I think that sell piece really comes into there.
Yeah.
And people struggle with that, whether you
They
want to call
do.
it imposter syndrome, or whether you call it just simply just not confident in their abilities to do something X, Y, and Z. But I also think a great salesman says, hey, I don't know the answer for this certain situation, but I'll find out and come back. Versus going, I
Absolutely.
don't know. It's like lost cause.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people too, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. They're so afraid of sounding salesy and having that label on them, that they're money hungry, or that they only, they don't have the client in their best interest. All they care about is the sale. People are so afraid of that they don't challenge clients on the call. And by the way, you should be, right? Because especially in fitness, if you're not challenging their routine or their beliefs or the things that got them there, if you're not challenging them throughout the call in a productive way, and I'm emphasis on productive, you're not going to get them to take any actionable change that's going to result in a positive outcome. You just won't, because they're gonna see, like, if you just encourage them, like, oh, I love that. I hear that all the time. I love that. I love that. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. And you're just like a yes person on the call. And then you get to the end and you're like, I think I made a friend. They're definitely going to buy from me. And then they don't. And it's like, you can't challenge them at the end, because now it does come off as pushy. You haven't done, now you're taking off the mask, right? So you have to have a productive conversation throughout the call and not be afraid to again challenge them when you hear that something might not be conducive to where they want to go.
So where did your sales training begin?
Yeah. So throw it back. I told Brooke, this is the goofiest thing. If anybody's heard of Jeremy Miner, he's one of the best in, I think, the world at this point. NEBQ. I saw his TikToks. I saw his TikToks and I started writing them down. I'm like, dude, I would love to be good at sales someday. Like, that would be cool. Then I talked to a buddy, my real estate partner, and he's like, dude, I bought this sales course. I haven't touched it yet, but it's this guy, Jeremy Miner. I was like, oh, no way. So anyway, put that to the side. I wrote down all of his TikToks and his verbiage. And I told Brooke, because she was considering becoming someone's assistant coach. She's like, I'm done with this. Like, I just want to scrap it. And I was like, well, I'm working like 312s. I was like, so I have some days off. Let me just give it a try. First call, 4K, 12 months, just from freaking TikToks. I never sold anything in my life. And just from a couple TikToks I sold, and all I did was just tap into like my nursing knowledge and like my bedside manner. And it worked. $4,000 right there. It wasn't collected, but we got like 350 up front. And I was like, okay, that's something.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, well, let me keep trying. And so she started teeing up calls. I was just knocking them down. I started getting my collected up a little bit. So she went from 3K per month to 12 in a month. I cashed out. I was like, this is my calling. I'm doing it. Cashed out my PTO, took everything out of my bank account, paid for mentorship from NEPQ, paid for a higher level mentorship. Then I even hired one of his top guys, Sean Ray. I hired him like privately on retainer for like daily meetings. So I spent everything I had back into sales just because I sold a couple deals for Brooke. And lo and behold, she wound up, she was able to put that money back into the business, the 12K. She put it into ads, which may have been premature looking back. And she hit 50K. She hit 50K within 90 days. So it worked. Would I do it the same way again? Maybe not, but that's our Cinderella story.
Sure. Then that's awesome.
And then I quit my job and started C4F.
It's funny because it seems like that me and Paul have kind of done the same thing to some degree, to where her piece was organization
Hmm.
of like being able to handle influx, graded sales,
Hmm.
graded content, leads on a problem. We had a funnel problem. The sales process was rough.
Hmm.
And she was like, well, it's like, I'm doing great. I'm like, I know, but look at all this left on the table.
Right.
And so that's where essentially like AR was designed and developed, was how can we better lead nurture these people so that we're able to go from A to Z a lot faster, a lot
Yeah.
easier than where's the last person I talked to this person, and like it just becomes where it was a lot.
Yeah.
And then we developing strategies essentially to help other people kind of do the same things, which is what you do too, right? So
Sure.
it's funny, like it's never an idea that we have, it's a solution that we fix.
That's just it. And then you just roll with it. If it
Hmm.
feels right, man. I know this is like hippy dippy and that's not really like me, but I don't know. It felt right. And I was like, this is something I could do. And I'm sure you probably had that similar feeling where you're like, this is cool. I could see
Yeah.
myself doing this.
Yeah. And so how long have you been now teaching people sales?
So full time, we're coming up on 2 years. So
Nice.
uh, total, I started taking calls. So before I started C4F, I jumped the gun a little bit, but I quit my job, sold for Brooke, and then I sold for four other fitness coaches. So I was selling for five.
Hmm.
Word kind of got around that I was doing pretty well. So I went to actually NLCA's event, Next Level Coaching Academy.
Hmm.
Um, and that's all of those guys were who I was selling for. So I went to that event and networked with a ton of people. More people asked me to sell for them. I couldn't. I was capped out. So I'm like, I can teach you. I'm like, yeah, please. And I was like, wait, really? Like, what do you think I should charge? They're like, I don't know. What do you charge? I'm like, 2 grand, 3 months, multiple weekly coaching calls. And they're like, yeah, easy. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I definitely over delivered for those first couple, 2 grand
Sure.
for 3 months, almost daily Zoom calls.
Wow.
But it helped me build the content for what is now, the
Sure.
process that we follow. So it worked. It worked out.
That's awesome. And what do you feel like the biggest mistake is that new trainers or closers, anybody that's essentially selling over the phone, what do you
Mhm.
find the biggest mistake being?
In the sales process or like in business in general?
The sales process, like the phone call.
You know, I I touched on it just a bit. I think it's just being too friendly, right?
Mm.
Like one of the first things that my mentor told me is like, I'm not there to be your friend, right? If we become friends, that's great. But my one and only job, my one and only goal on the call is to determine if I can help you. And if I can, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. Right. So just having the mentality that I do not know if I can help you or not until we get in and we start having conversation. Yes, you look like my ideal client. Yes, you fit the age bracket. Oh no. I hold on. I'm there we go. If I put a thumbs up, my camera freezes. It's like this weird new MacBook gesture thing. So if you see me putting my hands up, tell me to
Got
stop.
it.
What was I saying? What were we talking about? Oh,
Um,
just being able to challenge them essentially, right? I'm not there to be your friend. I'm there to determine if I can help you. If I can, then I'm going to do everything in my power to do that. And if that means asking you very targeted questions, making you, helping you realize that maybe your way wasn't the best way, or maybe the way that you thought you were going to go isn't the right route, like I'm going to do that, even if like I don't come off as like, I don't want to say the friendliest person because I'm not a jerk, but like my main goal is to help you, cross that path in your life. Right. So like I love that. That's so great. Amazing. Look at you. Like just the constant kudos that I see on calls. I think it limits your ability to ask hard questions.
Makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest reason or like from your experience, where do people go wrong?
um, I think obviously if the beginner, it's just the reps in general, right? You've never
Yeah.
asked out loud for money, so you don't even know how to do that. When you do, it's
Hmm.
right? The stutter. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, like you should say this like 1,000 times in the mirror so that it's
Mhm.
so fluid that it's,
Pop your chest. Feel strong when you're saying
right.
it.
So like something that we essentially try to get people to think about, and a post-it note on your computer is a really great way to do so.
Mhm.
Is we basically say people love to pay me money.
Yeah. You said you have that on a mirror too, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
another way to do it, right? But essentially, it's like people love to pay me money. Come with that
Mm.
confidence. That's that chess piece, right?
Mhm.
It's like I can help you. I want to help you, and you're going to
Mhm.
pay me to do so.
Yep.
Let's figure out what it is you want to do.
Mhm.
When you go in with that authority, then obviously, like you're trying to attract them to you instead of you being necessarily attracted to them. And I think that's the friendly piece, since you were talking about, right? But trying to
Yeah.
get them to come into your circle, make them lean in, make them
Right.
essentially be certain. Um, when it comes to the actual, like, let's just talk about Zoom calls.
Mhm.
I think the setup is also very important,
Mhm.
right? What's your camera angle,
Yeah.
or
That's
your
huge.
how clear is your voice,
Mhm.
right? Is it echoey? Like, I'm buying something for a lot of money. I need to have a professional feel to some degree.
100, dude. You're speaking to my soul, and I know we were talking about offices before we started recording here.
Mhm.
That's so crucial, man. If your camera looks like garbage, if you're like your whole setup, your mic, you're talking through like your your mic on your webcam, and it's just distorted, like it just doesn't give off the vibe that this is an expensive program,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it
It's
doesn't require, you don't need a $10,000 office. I mean, you can
right.
spend a couple $100 and have a professional looking studio.
Yeah. Or simply like just the camera quality or the audio quality,
Mhm.
right? I mean, when I was first starting and I didn't have like the setup that like somebody would see here, right?
Mhm.
I had I would put like um a pillow around the desk area to soften the echo, because I had a glass office
Oh, okay.
and it was just like do 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 do, and it was just
Yeah.
terrible. And it was like, so I need to make sure that like this was the quality in which I wanted the person
Mhm.
to receive. And so like little things like that, make sure you have good, lighting. It's not dark. Like don't have the
Mhm.
light behind you when you're taking a sales call
Mhm.
and it's just like you're, dark
A
as can
silhouette.
be and it's a glare. Like
Yeah.
just like little things like that make such the difference. And it's like there's no difference. Is like, would you post that picture on social media as a piece of content? No. Then why would you use it in a sales call?
Exactly. Like that's like that. Yeah, you struck a chord with me here because I do see it pretty often, and I'm not telling everybody that's listening, hey, go out and buy a $2,000 camera, the light boxes. This, you don't have to do all that. Like realistically, to have a nice studio, let me give you an example. Hired a new VA. Okay,
Mhm.
his mic sucked. This was on Monday. Immediately before we hopped off the call, I said, you're buying this mic. It's $40 on Amazon. It has great reviews. You're buying a mic. I cannot talk to you every day with that choppy audio, right? I don't know. It just drives me nuts. And mics are so affordable now.
Mhm.
Like, we have the same mic. It's like 250, $300 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
You don't need that. Like you can buy a mic and sound perfectly fine for $40 on Amazon.
Yeah, I had a Rode mic that I had it to where it could connect to my phone as well, so I could record
Mm,
content and
yep.
be crystal clear
Yep.
before I essentially got this one.
Hmm.
And I think it was like $100 with the tripod and everything that it come with. But it's like,
Yep.
no, like you can get things very affordable. Even like lapel mics now that can
Yeah.
connect to your phone,
Oh, dude,
right?
this one here. This one's a little bit more, but it's like the one that everybody's got, the DJI, it like comes in the little carrying case. This
Yeah.
little thing is phenomenal. Me and Brooke, you do so much content on this thing. Like you don't, I mean, listen, don't spend like all your money like getting set up with all the tech stuff. I'm a nerd, and I think Mike, me and you probably could jam out on that for hours. But again,
Yeah.
you can get a couple of lights for super cheap, uh, and you can have a nice studio, or at least and a light. These lights on Amazon, $40,
Hmm.
and you could have like the little ambiance. So easy.
Yeah. I just think it's It's just reinvesting into the next sale. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like video quality is really, if you've got an iPhone that's newer than a 13, like
You're
it
set.
don't really get much better. I mean, yeah, you can get a DSLR like I have now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just more for like streaming than it is like for a call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can get those. There's lots of different. I think there's with the brand Opal, the new webcams that have come out. They like look
I think I've seen.
awesome.
Yeah.
I think they're a few $100
Yeah.
better than your Mac.
Yep.
So like obviously there's different levels to things, but anything's gonna be better than like the basic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
even if you're taking the phone call, like in my opinion, if you're doing phone call, not Zoom call, like the iPhone headphones with the mic is going to
Mm-hmm.
be better than you just talking into the phone,
Yeah.
especially if you have it on speaker.
Yeah. And I am one of those people. I don't think I talked on the phone in years. Like literal years. I only can talk on speaker. I'm that person.
Yeah, most of the people now, it's funny because like most of the time I talk to my employees, it's like immediate FaceTime
Yeah.
or Zoom,
Yep.
right? Or
A
Loom.
Slack huddle or something.
Yeah,
So much
it's like
better.
never like direct. And I mean, sometimes I do it usually late at night because that way it makes me like not stay on there forever.
That's fair.
But
Yeah. So invest
um,
back into your studio. Just
absolutely,
a
I
little
think that's huge. I think that's really big.
bit. Mm-hmm.
Question for you:
Shoot.
what is the biggest thing that somebody that you've worked with has taught you? So, like one of your clients or students,
Mm-hmm.
what's the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from a client or student?
Okay. So it's from a student, not like a mentor.
Yep.
That's a really good question. I feel like I learn from these guys often, just in like when we're role playing. Like the big thing that I teach is the script, right? We have a script, the push pull buying process. It's written out, but it's in my voice. It was made from my brain. So when you say it, you sound like who? You sound like me. It's my dialogue, right? So I embed this into every single person I work with. Like, yes, memorize the process. If that means that you have to memorize the words, that's fine. But what I want is for this to sound like you. If I hear you and like it sounds like me, then you're not doing it right because we're very different people, right? So sometimes we'll go through, and I just redid a whole portion of the script, by the way, from a student doing this. She crushed it. She absolutely knocked it out of the park, and I was like, whoa. She just put it in her words, but it flowed so much better. And I'm like, that was money. That was absolute money. And I asked everybody, I was like, does everybody like that? I was like, you like it more than my way? Like, yeah, that was sick. I was like, all right, cool. Cause I'm changing the script right now to match that. So it's little things like that. Like the script, I'd be dishonest if I told you that it was like not a compilation of everything that I've learned from books, mentors, all the students
Sure.
that we've worked with. That's what it is. It's just the best of everybody's brain. But originally it was, mine. So I don't want to hear it sound like me. So
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's like every good coach, business owner, salesman. It's like you're taking what you've heard other people say and teach,
mm-hmm.
and then compiling it together and then putting your spin on it to match your offer, your pitch, your product, or your personality.
Exactly it. And I shouldn't say I don't like, I don't ever want to be the guru, the guy who claims everything was organic to me. I just woke up one day and thought of this and thought it, like I give shout outs on every podcast. If I say a word track, I'm like, shout out Michael, shout out Sean, shout out to this book, that book, this book. Like that's everything I am is just like, again, just a combination of everything I've learned from other people. And then some of it's mine. What percent of that? I really don't know, but that's why I don't claim to be a guru is because I
Sure.
like to give props.
No, and that's also like saying like, if I come out with the newest Lambo, I'm like, yeah, we're the first ever. And it's like, no, I just took what I liked about all these other cars and
Yep.
made my own. Like
That's
you didn't
exactly it.
reinvent the wheel, dude. You just made it look like your own.
Yeah. No different than marketing.
That's why I really like, I'm not a fan of the word self-made because there's no such thing.
Not in this.
Like
not
self-made,
Henry
Henry Ford, self-made. Until you
Yeah.
come up with something completely different that no one else is doing, it is not self-made.
Right. Yeah. You
You
better have
know?
a patent or two in your name.
Right.
Then
Right.
you get the title.
Um,
What
so in your
would you
opinion,
say?
how long is a sales call supposed to be?
1 or 2 call close. What do you prefer?
I personally teach a one call close.
Okay.
I also find that B2B is typically not a one call close.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
B2C, and for those who don't know, B2B would be business to business, right? So, for example, like what I do is business to business,
Mm-hmm.
versus if we did a coach selling to a client, that is business to customer or consumer. So that would be B2C, right?
Yep.
So I think B2C prefer one, or so I
Mm-hmm.
teach one. And then B2B, I'm trying to do one, often ends in two.
Yeah, that's fair. People think I'm like diehard 2 call close. If 1 call is working for your offer, stick with the 1. The script was originally created as a 1 call close, and it's still like fully applicable as a 1 call. We've transitioned to the triage. We've really, subscribed to that model just because I can list off a bunch of reasons if you want me to, but I don't want to go against like anything. I can
Sure.
just
No,
give my
I just
perspective.
open book, man. I'm the
Yeah.
student on the podcast.
No. But a few things that we've observed just from 2 call closes versus 1 call. I would put up my hands, but then my camera will freeze from thanks Steve Jobs or whoever's in charge. Um, but anyway, one, I think it builds trust. I think it builds trust because there's at least 1 call where there's no pitch. They can't buy it even if they want, and we use that verbiage sometimes in the DMs. Even for C4F, people are like, how much is it? It's like, you know what? Let's just have this conversation. You can leave your wallet downstairs. Like, you couldn't buy on this call if you wanted. Like, I'm not here to sell you anything. This call is purely to figure out if it would be a good fit. Right. So I feel like you get to book a little bit more calls from that. It builds a little bit more trust. The nurturing, which I know is your game, and you're the best in the business at it. You can nurture them in between those calls very effectively because it's a little bit more targeted to what they said on the call.
Mm.
Hey, Mike, had a blast on that call, dude. By the way, this just popped up on my YouTube. It was about blank, blank, and blank. I listened to it, and it sounds perfect for what you're trying to do. Happy to dive into that more. It's little gestures like that. It's like, oh, that was cool. Like, he thought of me, right? They might not even listen or watch, but they're like, hey, at least he thought of me. It can be anything. So you could send a picture of your dog and like, oh,
Right.
by the way, I know we were talking about dogs. Here's my German Shepherd Dolly, and they might send a picture back. And do you feel like, when they get onto that next call, they're going to be a little bit more warmed up? So I really like the custom nurturing. I think it builds trust. There's no sale on the first call. You get to know them a little bit more, so you get to prepare for the next call. So then when you give a client roadmap, it's an actual roadmap. It's not something that you're making up on the spot. It's something you've actually put a little bit of thought into. For C4F, sometimes we'll even put together a graphic. So I brought on a client. He's a good buddy of mine now, but he's like, dude, at the end of it all, I want an all gold Rolex, a Rolex day date, the presidential band, the champagne dial. I'm like, oh, sick. So when we had our call, I had a picture of that exact Rolex model, like as like the end of his roadmap. He thought that was hilarious, right? Little things like that make the conversation more fun, in my opinion. I can give a couple more reasons, but back to the original question. The triage should be 15 to 20 minutes, and we leave it on a cliffhanger intentionally. Okay. So if anybody ever somehow winds up on one of our calls about our service, I'm showing my cards here. I'm showing my aces. We leave every triage with a cliffhanger where we discover the problem, and then we're like, oh, look at the time. Is it worth another conversation to pick up where we left off? 99% of the time they'll say yes, because you've hit them on a soft spot, and then now it's time to go. So that's a fun part. And then the second call you get to pick up from there. So the first call, 15, 20 minutes. Second call, it depends. 20 to 40 is really ideal. 20 is like if you're cruising. 30 is more casual. And then 40 is like, depends on how fast you talk.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And just so to talk about what Brendan just said was like, he's like, oh, you guys do this really well. Lead nurturing would be with our system, for example, let's say this person's looking to lose fat versus build muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we would do, or the capabilities of doing is, hey, after this call, I'm going to tag this person with, needs to lose 20 plus pounds. And then based on that, they're going to go through a nurture sequence that's going to send them, it can be like review videos or testimonials from people that have done just that.
Smart.
Lost 30 pounds, lost 50 pounds, lost 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks, whatever it may be. And the content which they receive is going towards that person's end goal.
Based on their
versus
tags.
at the same time, if like this person wanted to not lose 20 pounds, but wanted to gain 10 pounds of muscle, then all the content that we would send them would be, and what we do is automated. So we'd automatically send them things in that up to the next call about building muscle and some tips on protein and this, that, whatever, but fitting their ideal goal. So they go, man, this is the right coach for me because everything they're sending me is exactly what it is I want to do.
Beautiful.
Right. Which ties right into what Brent talked about with like having that Rolex there, speaking ideally, one, to ideal client, but two, like being very personalized with that person's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the more that we can connect there, right, is that we're just showing alignment more so than just like call, nothing in between, call.
Yep.
Right. Or book a call, nothing leading up to the call, just call. And they're like, well, I don't know who I'm speaking with. I don't even know what they sound like. I don't know what to expect. I got a good friend of mine, George Bryant, who talks about customer journey a lot. And I've learned a lot of things from him. And one of the things that he says is that if you don't tell your customer what it is you want them to know, you're not going to like the assumption which they make.
Nice.
So I need to basically tell you what your next step is, what I'm going to send you tomorrow. And so I'm never leaving you hanging. You always know the next phase or the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, I just want you to watch this video. Tomorrow, I'm going to send you this to go over X, Y, and Z. Make sure you block out some time to do so. I'm going to send you an email at 5 a.m., blah, 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 with the next steps. It's just like you're always leading them down the path. But it also shows like you're building trust that like you're going to guide them. Excuse me. You're going to guide them where they need to go versus always just like making a statement or saying something. And then, they're just like, when's the next time he's going to reach out?
Exactly.
Or when's the next time we're going to do this or that? Like that's where retention comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah. Much more of a leader. And if they're hiring you for something where they need accountability, that leadership model and method it makes perfect sense. Right. Mike's got me. He's got me all organized. He's got me doing this, this, and this, and this. Of course he's going to have that when, if I sign up, he's going to have my regimen built out for me. So I think, it's just congruence, right? It's congruence to how you coach.
Yeah. It's like same thing for when a coach comes on our platform, Mondays, you're getting a text message first thing in the morning saying, hey, here's the call schedule for the week for you to show up on, plan accordingly. Right. Here's the call. Here's the link to this call. Here's the link to that call versus hey, just remember, these are the call times. It's like, well, best of luck to you.
Yeah.
Versus trying to be as granular as possible. But also you're trying to be granular as possible with, I hate to say it, put in the least amount of work possible so you can focus on growing the business versus running the business.
Sure.
Right. Which is in time, that becomes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Right. Making that sheet that you needed to have that Rolex on there. That takes some preparation. That takes time. That takes a lot of thinking to do so. It's worth it in the end. At volume, it becomes difficult. Right. Or whenever you have other closers in place and things like that, all those things make a massive difference. So you're trying to find something that is effective and scalable, kind of all at the same time, which is every coach has their own sweet spot of what that looks like.
Yeah. I think it's just, it's like finding your boundaries, right? Like in sales, again, if that's not the theme of this, then I don't know what it is. But like with sales, I tell people, and this just happened yesterday, right? Our client Ree, she was like, I'm just so nervous. Like if they don't close right away, which she's an excellent closer now. I mean, she's crushing it. But she's like, when I get the objection, like something just clicks in me and I don't want to do it. I'm so afraid of sounding like sleazy or salesy. I said, now Ree, just try this. Okay. And I'm going to preface, it will be a little bit uncomfortable, but in sales, you have to go further and work back. You have to put your hand on the stove and say, oh, that was too far, or that was too hot, and then slowly work back. Okay. Once you find those boundaries and you can pick up on their cues, maybe you sense their tonality shifts or their body language is like they're constantly adjusting and they're just like a little bit uneasy and they're making excuses. Those are good things to pick up on with reps to pull back. Okay. Now you've maybe gone a little bit too far. Let's ease up. Okay. Now, once she was able to do that, now she sent me a video yesterday. It made my whole day. She overcame her first big objection, right? She hung in the pocket for a little while and then she kind of like felt and was going a little bit further and a little bit further and testing her boundaries. The reason I bring that up is I think business and deliverables should be very similar. You should start out by over delivering. And then if you have to, you can work back incrementally, not taking away from their experience, but just refining it to be more effective and more efficient, as opposed to selling them in, not giving them enough, and then just trying to hurry up and flood them with a bunch of new stuff.
For fitness coaches, what do you find the number one objection is that coaches get?
It's money. I mean, it's always money or spouse, which could still be money. So I'll go ahead and stir up the mud puddle there for you. But obviously it comes down to clarifying what the actual objection is. They might tell you spouse, and really, in fact, their spouse is just a human shield. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're broke. Okay. And they want to save face. Just depends. But the most common one I think people will hear is money. It's just too expensive.
Okay. And the number one thing that you use for money?
Clarity. I want to know if it is money or if it's fear of spending the money, if it's fear of affording it. You know, if it's a 12-month program, is it fear of commitment because they have X, Y, and Z coming up? Can they have, maybe they're thinking, I have a wedding at the end of the year. I don't know if I'll be able to afford it, 6-8 months from now when I have to pay for the venue or whatever it is, right? So I want to get really clear on like what the financial picture looks like without being too intrusive, right? Mm-hmm. So like the first question I ask on every call, it pretty much doesn't change, is a binary question. So Mike, I want home field advantage. So I want an idea of what you're going to say so that I can respond properly. I can't have that in objection handling if I ask open-ended questions the whole time, because you have home field advantage. You can say whatever the hell comes to your mind, and then I have to be able to respond in seconds. Okay. To avoid that, I'm going to give binary options. So Mike, when you say it's too expensive, is that more in relation to what's in the bank, or more like the value and kind of, whether or not you see the program working? No, it's not the value. Everything you do sounds amazing. I definitely see that working. It really is just like what's in the bank. Well, cool, man. It might be, that we don't come to an agreement, and that's totally fine. Right. But what do you say we just spend the next couple of minutes here? We workshop some ideas. And if we can help and come to like a conclusion, I'd be happy to. If not, then I'll send you in the best direction. So it's like, I'm getting permission to objection handle with you. Okay. And by the way, we might not come to an agreement, and that's okay. But what do you say we just workshop a few ideas? Maybe we find something. Most people aren't going to say no to that, because they're like, oh, okay. He separated himself from the sale. And why not workshop some ideas? Like, we're already here. We've already been talking for 40 minutes. So I like to get permission to objection handle.
Right. So if you're listening, rewind that back and write that down, because I agree. I think that's very good. Yeah.
It's hard to be difficult with you if they gave you permission to go down that path. But if you jump right in, dude, how much money's in your bank? Come on. Like, we're adults here. Like, and like we get really assumptive, then they have complete, in my perspective, they have complete permission to push back a little bit. That's none of your business. Respectfully, right?
Sure.
But if you at least tell them like, hey, what do you say? Are you cool if we spend the next 5 minutes just kind of maybe putting some ideas back and forth here? Maybe we land on something, maybe we don't. They typically, like, the attitude, doesn't really it doesn't really happen if they say yes. And if they say no, great. I mean, maybe you save some time for both of you, but it's probably not finances at that stage, or they might not really want to do it.
Good. I like it. I like it. What is the biggest ticket you've ever closed?
That I've ever closed?
Mhm.
15.
Cash
15.
collected?
Yeah.
Nice.
We don't sell. It's more, that was for like super advanced one-to-one with us.
Sure.
For an extended period of time. Yeah, I've never sold on like any other like super. I know a lot of like my mentors are like, yeah, I sell $400,000. Like I don't even know what they sell, like BizOps, SaaS, all this
Right.
crazy stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's insane. But they're selling to like, Fortune 500 companies. I've never done that. It would be cool.
Sure. Yeah, the
What about you?
fulfillment of that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. What's the biggest ticket?
For me, 99% of all sales I've made have been reoccurring. So I only build reoccurring business models.
Smart.
So I focus on ARR, right? Or
Mhm.
which is annual recurring revenue versus a lot of people probably heard of MRR.
Sure.
So MRR is our main focus. The biggest ticket I've closed personally would be 9,800.
Yeah.
But inside like my agency, for example, we've had clients pay us north of like 250 over contracted time.
Right. That makes
So
sense.
it's like, let's just say example, it's 5,000 a month, but you paid me for 2 years.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's hard to get somebody to say 250 for 2 years.
Yeah.
But like I can do, 5 for a month and
Yeah.
whatever. And then
And just deliver the shit out of it.
Right.
And retain them.
Which is where every conversation becomes a sale.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, you ain't kidding there.
Which is why I live that thought process, because recurring revenue is my model, which means every call is one call away from cancellation.
Well, that's where I'm gonna give a shout. I love the guy. I won't say his name because we're actually competitors too, which is hilarious. But he's a great marketer. And I wouldn't be on this podcast if I viewed you as competition. That's not out of disrespect. It's just there's
Abundance,
so much.
baby.
Yeah, I mean,
Abundance.
I thrive on the abundance mindset. Like we all help with a slightly different way. Maybe you and I could coach the exact same thing, but someone subscribes to your method a little bit more than mine, or they just retain how you teach better. That's fine. We're all in this to win. Like it really doesn't offend me. So one of our competitors targeting fitness coaches, I saw his marketing just out of this world. I mean, he's so good at it. He's like the guy for it. I was like, I hit him up. I was like, dude, I don't know if you'd be open to it, but we should have a chat. And we became pals. And now I pay him on retainer every month. And he writes a lot of the content. He helps me with all of our launch. Like he does all of it, like he does for fitness coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, he's on retainer. So at the end of every month, and I love him for it, but he like resells me. He's like, next month, this launch, this is what we're doing. I'm going to build this out. We're going to hit this. We're going to do this and do that. I'm like, dude, I'm staying. Like, just tell me what we're doing. You don't have to resell me. Like, just keep it on retention, dude.
All right.
But
So I'm going to give advice for those listening. The best thing you can do, I talked about, is leading the customer journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never leave a call without another call booked.
Yeah.
If you don't collect the money, put a call in. I don't care if the call is 3 weeks from today.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on the calendar.
Amen.
Never put it in there. I mean, 'cause you can speak. How many people, they're like, yeah, I'll hit you up, actually hit you up?
Small
Never.
percent.
Never happens. It's very low. Mm-hmm. And so the only time that has worked for me would be a big business that's like, hey, dude, I got to get through Q3. We got a big launch. But no individual, no person needs 6 weeks to think about or get through something. Right. Yeah. And so big business, completely different. Right. I mean, because I got buddies that sell software for like Salesforce and big companies. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, sometimes this is a 4 or 5 month sales process.
Oh, yeah.
right? Because you're trying to maneuver cruise ships and they can't just turn on a dime,
No.
right? It's a multi-mile sweep to make this turn.
Yep.
Versus when we're selling to an individual, right?
They got a jet.
99% of people listening to this podcast or watching this is that you're selling to consumer. We got to remember they're driving a paddle boat.
Yeah.
You can spin in circles. I don't need you to
Mhm.
think about it. I need you to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you don't need more than 24, 48, max 72 hours to actually think about this decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And when they're thinking about it, what are you thinking about is the question.
Right. And that's something I ask often. It's like, why don't you think about it? Okay. No, I totally get it. However, I know you're not going to go sit on the couch and just like mull over and go like, man, let me think about Mike and what he does. Like, you're not going to do that. You're going to watch football. It's Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're doing. So while you think about it, what questions do you have to ask that you need to think about? So maybe I can answer those now and give you something to actually think on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're actually thinking about those things and we're talking them out and like, so we actually don't have to think about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time you say, well, what is it that you need to think about? They go, well, this. And they ask the question that they've been needing to ask the entire time. And it's like, and they're like, oh, that's it? Oh, cool. Yeah. Not a problem then. But sometimes like the person on the phone is afraid to ask the questions. I don't want to feel stupid, but give them permission to do so, right? Just like you give them permission to talk about X, Y, and Z, give them permission to ask those questions as well.
Absolutely.
At the same time, I find that this is sometimes a mistake I'll make. Do you have any questions? And I just opened up Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what about this? What about this?
Yeah.
What about this? And I'm like, fuck, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Right. Because now I'm actually giving them a shit ton of things to actually think about.
Right.
Because now we're not selling the outcome. We're in the metrics of it.
Yep.
Because I always say like to coaches that are closing, like, hey, like I'm not actually selling the workout program. I'm not going to talk about you're going to get 5 days a week. We're going to go into this, this, and this. You're going to have 3 sets of 12. We're going to have this workout type of meal plan. We're going to eat this and eat that. It's like, no, what's our end result? That's what we're selling.
Yeah. Sell the vacation.
We're exactly
not the plane,
right?
The flight there. And people don't. One last word track for you guys while we're here. Thinking it over is because we talked about money. Thinking it over, just maybe a little pro tip. I do the same thing. I do binary. So, okay, when you're thinking it over, are you going to think more about like the program and whether or not like it's a good fit? Or would it be more about like, how you're going to pay for it? Like when it comes down to like the money. Most times, at least in my experience, when I ask them that, they say, no, the program's great. I just need to think about how I'm going to pay for it. Perfect. So this isn't a think about it objection. It's a money objection. I don't say that, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going down that branch, not the think about it. The think about it is fear. There's a legitimate concern here. Let's talk about money. And then from there, you know what I mean? Sometimes there's still fear components which show up at the end, but at least we handled the money aspect because that's the one that has to be true no matter what.
Yep. And I think I'll fall right back to that. If we're still not able to close, this is a big mistake I see a lot of newbies make. It's like never leave that phone, never leave that call without another one booked.
No.
I think
never.
That's massive, massive, massive.
Yep.
But also remember too, like when we're selling fitness, it's an impulse purchase.
Yeah.
I walk by the mirror that morning. I don't like the way I look. I walk by the pantry. I forget about that. And I eat the Ritz crackers.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, that's the mindset which somebody has. We have a window. Are we catching them in the motivated window? Or are we catching them in the self-pity window?
Right.
They're on the phone with you. We're in a motivated window.
Yep.
Soon, they're going to fall back to that pity window or this like, well, maybe next week I'll get started or the New Year's just around the corner. I'll start then. So it's like really trying to stay on somebody when they're motivated.
Yeah.
Business, a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right. B2B. But you should find a faster closing window on business to consumer, in my opinion.
100%. You got to strike while the iron's hot. You know what I mean? B2B, it's you assume they're motivated. You assume like they're in almost a constant state of motivation, that logistically things just have to align to make that happen. And you have to respect that and like give them that little bit of space. Where like B2C, it's like, not that you don't respect that, but it's like, it's you have windows of opportunity, right? Where the motivation is kind of at a higher level.
I think another thing too, is that whenever we're selling and whenever we're getting to the process of selling, I think oftentimes as the entrepreneur, we forget that we are motivated, we are disciplined, we are high achievers, we want to pursue. So you can't look at yourself as the same as your person you're selling to.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that you're going to take action a lot different than that individual that you're selling to.
For sure.
So for example, if you've ever DM'd somebody a keyword to learn more about something business related, you wanted to take action now because you were driven, you were motivated. You don't have an insecurity attached to that because that's not how you operate. You operate at a high level.
Sure.
The person that's essentially has the insecurities attached, which is why they want to lose weight in the first place, most of the time, don't have that drive, don't have that ambition, or they wouldn't need you in the first place.
100%.
And so don't think that they're going to be like you. Right? We got to meet them where they're at, not where we want them to be.
Exactly.
That's where the certainty carries them across the finish line. And oftentimes we're standing at the end of the finish line when somebody's running that marathon. We're like, come on, run harder, run faster. You got this.
Yeah. Easy
it's
to
like,
say.
That's if you were running it, that would work for you because that is your personality type.
Right.
But the other person, they need you to go meet them where they're at, run it with them.
Yeah.
And so don't get frustrated when somebody is just not ready to take that step, whether it's like get on a call or this or that. Like sometimes we have to go where they're at and then move forward.
Exactly. Kind of walk with them.
All right, Brent. So where can people find you at?
You can find me on Instagram. It's just Brent Kromer, Kromer _ So you'll see me. It'll say like sales and systems, big picture of me. So easy to find there. Facebook, Brent Kromer. Yeah, those are where I'm most active. YouTube and all the other stuff we can put in the show notes.
All right, man. Dude, I appreciate it so much for you coming on today. I think there's a lot of value here. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot from it. Again, thank you so much, man. And until next time.
I hope so, man. Thank you for having me.
My biggest takeaway podcast.